I tweeted this out last week when Q had mentioned it the first time. A donation to Black Lives Matter literally funds old white men to run for president. Literally. Figure that out.
Hey friends, Sean from SGT Report and SGTReport.com here with a very important update and a gripping interview with my friend Mike, Spaceshot76. Now guys, we recorded this interview yesterday, the 1st of July, and now this morning, breaking news, Ghislaine Maxwell has been arrested.
Today we announced charges against Ghislaine Maxwell for helping Jeffrey Epstein sexually exploit and abuse multiple minor girls from the period of 1994 through 1997. In some cases, Maxwell participated in the abuse herself. Maxwell enticed minor girls, got them to trust her, then delivered them into the trap that she and Epstein had set.
It's shell-shocking news, and it's a very important high-level deep state arrest, which is exactly what I've been asking for. We need to see deep state, high-level arrests before the November election, and this may just be the tip of the iceberg. Now, a couple of things. Reports are that she may be sent to the same New York City jail where Epstein was suicided. But here's my take. If they wanted her dead, and I'm talking about those who arrested her, if they knew she was in the United States, in New Hampshire, on a 156-acre estate, more on that in a second, they could have whacked her. The fact that they have taken her into custody on the back of the Epstein quote-unquote suicide is huge news. And as I tweeted today, I'm betting there are a lot of nervous people in Hollywood and in Washington, D.C. And another note, it's just one more reason to never ever believe the mainstream media. Always believe the opposite of what they're reporting, because the mainstream media was peddling the narrative that Ghislaine Maxwell had fled to France, where there is no extradition treaty with the United States, when in fact she was hiding out in New Hampshire in a beautiful home on 156 acres, which she reportedly bought for $1 million in cash. To which I say, stop the presses. How on earth can anyone get such a beautiful home on 156 acres in New Hampshire for $1 million? Who was the seller? Follow the money. It sounds to me like that may have been more of a down payment. There's no way one could procure such a property for 1 million US fiat dollars. And one last note. You may also notice some spin regarding Bill Clinton. I'm seeing reports today that Bill Clinton visited Pedogate Island, Epstein's Island, multiple times, over 24 times, because he was having an affair with Maxwell. Not because he was diddling kids, not because he was involved in pedophilia, but because he was having an affair with Maxwell. Well, how convenient. He couldn't have that affair in New York City, or in New Hampshire, or in Washington, D.C. He had to fly to Little St. James. There is panic in D.C. on the back of this arrest, and it is maybe the best news we've seen so far this year. We'll keep a very close eye on this story, and before we begin this interview with Spaceshot76, just a quick word from this interview's sponsor. On the back of this virus, our health and patience have really been tested. But guess what? 100% pure ESS60 is incredible, and now you can get it directly from the lab. It's called a miracle molecule because people sleep better and enjoy more energy and mental focus with a simple spoonful in the morning. ESS60 comes in 3 delicious organic oils: olive, avocado, and MCT coconut. This groundbreaking blend supports your immune system with powerful antioxidant and antiviral properties. ESS60 delivers more than 172 times the power of vitamin C. ESS60 is such a powerful antioxidant that it helps neutralize free radicals to assist with detox. You're going to love it. It's great for pets too. Get $10 off today at c60perfect.com. I'll leave the link below. All right, friends, welcome back. Thank you so very much for tuning in. It's absolutely wonderful to have you guys here, and I really do appreciate it because I know it's getting harder and harder to find many channels on YouTube, and in some cases, impossible to find because they're terminating channels altogether, like Stefan Molyneux and the Iconoclast. Boy, I sure hope it doesn't happen to me or my friend Mike from Spaceshot76. How are you, Mike?
I'm doing good, brother. They've already done a hell of a number on me, and I see what they're doing to you too, man. And it really ticks me off because I've seen you. I've been watching you on YouTube. I think probably back to 2012. I want to say, maybe 14. But I've been watching you for many years on YouTube, putting out truthful information. And unfortunately, nowadays the truth is what gets us censored. It used to be dangerous talk, and now the truth is literally dangerous talk when you get classified through YouTube.
Yeah, they pick and choose the speech that they promote, and they pick and choose the speech they terminate. It's a modern day book burning. They demonetized Red Pill. They demonetized SGT Report, all within the last month. How about you? Have they demonetized you?
Oh yeah, I got hit. I want to say about August or September of last year, and I was able. This is funny too. I was able to reapply for monetization on January 14th, and they said usually it'll get you an answer by a month. And then 3 or 4 months went by, and then we had the COVID thing, and then it says due to global whatever. And you know what, Sean? I don't expect to get it back. It's not like there's somebody at YouTube who's going to say, oh, you know what, we got this wrong, because this guy is obviously a conservative. He's putting the truth out, which is dangerous for us. So there's no way. And you know what, at this point, I have a job, and my job is, in the automotive field. We'll leave it at that. And this I do because I'm passionate about our country. But I really do feel like I feel anger for the channels like yourself and like Red Pill that I know that are doing this as they're living. And I know you're passionate as well at it. But it really ticks me off to know that they're messing with people's livelihoods, and it's all just to get their own narrative through. They want to shadow the bad things that they do, and they want to literally make up all sorts of lies about what President Trump does 24/7, but yet those things never get corrected, and we get thrown in the dust heap, basically.
Yeah, I agree. And it's one thing to say, hey, they're not legally able to do this if they have Section 230 protections because they're a platform, not a publisher. They can't pick and choose which speech to promote and which speech to censor under the letter of the law. That's one argument. But the other argument, Mike, is election rigging. I mean, if you're a political person with political opinions and you espouse those opinions on your channel, that's political speech. If I, in some ways, am doing the exact same thing and I have political opinions and I share those opinions with my audience, when they censor us, they are, you could argue, rigging the election.
Oh, I would absolutely agree 100%. And why they're doing it too, Sean, is the media is not trusted anymore, really. I mean, and the proof is shown if you go, excuse me, if you go to any of the YouTube channels, even like CNN versus Fox, and you watch the breakdown versus a President Trump speech versus a Biden speech, you're talking tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people are watching President Trump, and you may get 5,000 or 6,000 people that are watching Biden. And then how many of those numbers are people like me and you that want to go there just to get good material because the guy can't even spell his own first three-letter name? So I mean, it's crazy times that we're living in here, and I just hope that some switch gets thrown. I don't know if you remember a couple of weeks ago that Brad Parscale was talking about something they've been working on for the better part of 3 years and put about $100 million into, that's going to allow their campaign to reach 100 million people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know if that's going to be their own social media platform. I also, I don't know if it's going to be the presidential alert system that they've tested a few times. But, the long and the short of it is we have a good audience here on YouTube and Twitter, etc. And if we start going off to these other platforms that are solely, MAGA and conservative, then we're not reaching over to the other side. So even if they do that, I will continue to try to post on all the platforms I can, because we need to wake up as many people as possible quickly, because this country is going down the toilet and it's going down quickly. And my fear too is, Sean, and I know you feel this as well, that if President Trump doesn't act pretty soon, he's going to start losing the people that do support him, that are just not wanting to see the fight that's against him all the time because of the anger and the hatred. And unfortunately, I've seen a few of those, but I've seen many more that are Democrats coming back towards the good side, or, defending the good side and seeing what's happening on the opposite side, because it's literally, it's what's convenient for their narrative. George Floyd, there's not a person in this country that is backing what that officer did to George Floyd. But have you heard one person, one BLM member, anybody talk about the 3-year-old boy that got shot in the back seat in Chicago, the 100+ people that got shot in Chicago this weekend? Why? Because it wasn't done by a white cop. It doesn't fit their narrative, and it doesn't stoke anger like they want 24/7.
Yeah, I agree. And in a second, I want to talk more about election rigging, or should we say money laundering, as it relates to
Oh,
BLM
yeah.
donations and Biden. But first, let me just ask you, in your view, who in their right mind at this point, unless you're just a brainwashed young person who embraces Marxism, but honestly, who in their right mind, after watching what happened in Seattle under the watch of Mayor Jenny, who frankly endorsed all of it with the CHOP, the autonomous zone, Lori Lightfoot, who openly said she wants to stack the deck with people who have pledged allegiance to the New World Order, Lori Lightfoot in Chicago.
And you pick the people to run those agencies and the deputies that are pledging allegiance to the New World Order and good governance.
De Blasio in New York City, allowing that city to turn into a hellhole. Gavin Newsom out in California, who is now trying to re-lock down the entire state. Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan, an open and total tyrant. Who in their right mind would vote for these people, or much less Biden, who even Fox News claims is leading Trump in the polls from coast to coast?
Yeah, I mean, and if we believe their polls, President Trump would have never won the 2016 election. But as you pointed out, it's major Democrat cities from across the country. And people apparently aren't in their right minds because they have this Trump derangement syndrome. He is the most hated. I would have to say, I mean, I wasn't alive during Kennedy and Lincoln and whatnot, but he has to be the most hated president of all time. And then becomes the question is why, right? Like, did he come in and just say, you know what, start insulting people out of nowhere? And, he does insult people, but it's always a counterpunch, right? He's been attacked to the point where he's counterpunching these people. So the long and short of it is these people have been in government. So if you take California, like you mentioned, they have what? The average tenure of the people in their government there have been in there for about 40 years. And what do? They ruin their state. So California, for example, you got needles all over the place, people defecating, using the toilet out front on the streets. But yet these people keep voting them in. And I would assume it has to be in large part due to voter fraud, for one. And for two, people just kind of staying in their lane, doing the same thing. And I guess that is, right, Sean? It's the definition of crazy. If you're keep voting these people in and expecting to see something different, that's the definition of crazy right there.
Yeah, you're right. Einstein's definition of insanity is doing the exact same thing over and over and expecting a different result. This country is quite literally at this point being burned down by these people. And I've been saying that it's just a page out of the Soros playbook. This is exactly what these globalists have done to second and third world countries, and now they're doing it here. And what really, I think, enrages people is, take, for instance, CHOP, the autonomous zone in Seattle, allowed to happen under Democrat Mayor Jenny, who's now being sued, by the way. She's opened herself up to lawsuits for enabling it, but look how quickly that whole thing was disassembled when the cops rolled in, So I think people are ticked because Democrats are fostering and fomenting a lot of this terror, and it is terror. Right? Antifa has been labeled a terror organization by the Trump administration, and I think rightly so. I guess it begs the question, how many of these people are being rounded up and arrested that we haven't even heard about yet, Mike?
Yeah, that's the thing is, and I really feel like the people that are the highest up, like we all talk about, Hillary and Soros, but I think there are going to be people that are higher up that we never would have thought were running some of these things, and then people we've never even heard of. But you're right, it's terrorism. It's literally domestic terrorism. When I'm watching a guy scream at two thugs not to hit my wife as his wife's getting hit by a 2x4 by one guy that's probably, got a foot and a half on her, that's not my America. I didn't grow up in this type of America. I grew up in the America where I could literally walk into any one of my neighbors' houses. They would feed me dinner, or vice versa. Any of the other neighbor kids would come over. We knew all of our neighbors. We gathered with all of our neighbors. We had neighborhood crime watch. And that's where it really starts, Sean, is in your own community. We need to start putting more actions behind our words. We're doing a good job as far as getting the word out, and all the wonderful viewers that watch us and share our information are doing a great job as well. But I think we need to actually start putting more actions towards the words. But my only concern has always been, hey, let's get together and do this. What is our main concern is that they have these agent provocateurs. Oh, well, we're going to have a bunch of conservatives meeting over here in, say, Providence, Rhode Island. Well, they'll send in a bunch, of agent provocateurs that will turn this peaceful rally into, Bethlehem, absolute mayhem, and that's what I worry about as far as doing that. So it always comes back to knowing the people that are around you, knowing in your own community, and starting from there. Because, anybody, I'm sure you can look out in your front yard, and if you see somebody that's walking down your neighborhood that's not from your neighborhood, that, right? And in years past, it's been a little bit more obvious. But the country that I grew up, in the early 80s, I graduated high school in the early 90s. It was starting to go a little bit down the toilet then. But, in my early childhood, this country is something I want to get back to. That's the country I want to get back to, where people would watch out for each other and not want to fight 24/7.
Yeah, amen. Yeah, me too. I mean, that's what we all want, right? Everybody that wears a MAGA hat or supports President Trump just wants liberty, right? That's all we're asking for, and justice, equal justice under the law. I want to share a tweet here with you guys from Mike Krieger, and then we're going to dig into that money laundering, Biden and BLM. But take a look at this, Mike. Well, there's the CHOP zone, thanks to Mayor Jenny. Good job, Jenny. Mike Krieger, the U.S. has no functioning government at the moment. It's just oligarchs and lobbyists looting everything. You truly are on your own. If you don't see this clearly now, you will soon. I think what Mike is referring to is obviously the big banks, Wall Street stacking the deck with the stock market, the Federal Reserve printing is out of control, and that deeply troubles me too. But where he's spot on for sure is with what you're seeing right here below there from DD Sun, the CHOP, the autonomous zone. I mean, if we are to believe Thomas Jefferson, the only reason to resort to government at all is to protect our liberties, you explain to me why Democrats shouldn't be impeached, recalled, and frankly, tried for crimes against the Constitution. Because what you're seeing there is not liberty for those business owners, and it's not liberty for people that live in those buildings. It's the exact opposite. It's total tyranny.
Yeah, and how many of these local business owners have to, join up with these people just so they don't get their things smashed in and whatnot? And, it's a sad state of affairs to see our country going in this direction. And not only are they willfully, they're literally complicit in allowing this. And, oh, it's just going to be the summer of love and everything's going to be fine. And, well, what do we have? 2 people shot this last weekend, and one of the parents is demanding that they pull in the National Guard. So I don't think that would be a bad idea to clean up some of these areas. But then, then becomes the whole thing of the media against President Trump. I mean, I think at a certain point, he needs to just say, I don't really care what the media says, and just goes in and does what needs to be done, because they're always going to say negative things about him, right? He could cure cancer tomorrow and they would have said, oh, well, he didn't do it a year ago. Or, I'm going to give everybody on the planet $1 million. Oh, well, he's probably keeping 10 for himself. I mean, it's always something. So he literally needs to do something, I think. And I think a lot of people feel that way. And, we want to see this plan into motion, because as you mentioned earlier, people that are on the left, like I have a cousin that, my wife's aunt, when I go to her house, she has the toilet paper of Donald Trump. They can't stand him over there. He's putting out posts on Facebook the other day. Hey, conservatives, the wall isn't being built. And, just right down the line. And I'm like, my wife was reading this to me and I'm like, wow, he couldn't be any more wrong. Like, he's literally listing off all these things that the typical angry Democrat would be yelling. And I'm like, well, that's wrong. Okay, what about this one? That one's wrong. And they're just spouting out this negativity, and they're never backed by facts. And they just keep spreading them with the hope that somebody else is going to get angry at President Trump and want him out of there. I mean, this guy has done amazing things, and and Sean, I'm no millionaire, believe me. I worked in a warehouse, or I work in a warehouse. I'm not a doctor or anything like that. So when I hear people say, President Trump's tax breaks, it's only for the wealthy, and I don't consider myself a wealthy person. And you know what? My paycheck, I was getting an extra $25 back because of his tax cuts. So, that right there in itself, on top of many other just blatant lies, makes him seem to other people, and it makes him seem to Democrats like he's this, he's Satan. And that's why I think certain people won't vote for him, because they're too busy, or they're too staunch in their own opinion to even want to look at the evidence to see, and it's blatant. I mean, so it's their own fault, really.
Yeah, it is their own fault. I'm just circling back to that Mike Krieger tweet. It's just oligarchs and lobbyists looting everything. I think a great example of that is the stacking of the deck for Gilead Sciences and remdesivir. Do you know that a treatment of remdesivir is going to cost somewhere between $2,800 and $3,100? Meanwhile, Fauci ignores hydroxychloroquine and zinc. They don't want people to know that works, and it's cheap. And they want people to await a Bill Gates vaccine. Where do you stand on that? Can you even imagine standing in line for the Bill Gates vaccine?
Not only will I never stand in line for that vaccine, I will never get it. And I put a poll out on my Twitter the other day. We had about 9,980 votes, and it was 96% or so of the people said that they would not get that vaccine. And I posed it saying, when school comes back around and they tell you your kids have to have vaccines to go to school, or you have to have vaccines to go to certain places, will you do it? And it was literally like 3% were undecided. I think 2% said that they would, and the rest, 96 or so percent, whatever it was, overwhelmingly people will not get that because they don't trust him. They see what's going on. They see that they have these meetings before, 2 or 3 months before the outbreak. And it's just like, oh, well, what was that? Well, we were just modeling what would happen if the exact similar type of virus was to spread out in the world. It's like, really?
Right.
That's kind of convenient. And you're right. Oh, remdesivir, sure, guys, no problem. $3,000, but no, we can't use this hydroxychloroquine and Z-Pak, which is like, what, 30 cents and like $5 for the for the duration. So, all these companies, they're all wrapped up, and it's all about making themselves richer. And you're right, the old oligarchs and the bankers and whatnot. When I started seeing President Trump, and I look to you obviously for financial news and things along those lines, Sean. And when I look and I see what President Trump has been doing, do you guys think honestly that if you're on unemployment right now, you're going to get an extra $600 a week under President Trump? Do you think that would have happened under President Obama? I almost threw up in my mouth just saying that, President Obama. That's ridiculous. I mean, what happened in 2009? How many people failed? How many people lost their houses? How many people were trying to make payments on houses? I was trying to make payments on houses, Sean, and I did make payments on my house, and I still had my house taken from me because they wouldn't even respond. So nobody was getting any help under Obama back in 2009. And under this situation, under President Trump, he's giving the extra $600. They gave that stimulus. I think they're talking about giving another one. I almost felt like in the beginning that they were he was like trying to take down the Federal Reserve, because, that's another conversation we could have, that I think we all can agree that that's a system that is not set up for the American people. It's only set to enrich themselves. And every year, you have to take out a little extra. I need a little bit extra more money to pay for the extra interest of last year. So the system that we're in, there's no way it can ever sustain. Oh, we'll just raise the debt ceiling again and again and again. That's a major issue in our country, and I think it needs to be taken care of sooner than later. And he is, I think, as I've been listening to you, report on, he's placing people in the central, on the Federal Reserve boards and whatnot. So I think he is trying to make his move.
Well, we'll have to leave that discussion for another day, because as much as I like to be a cup half full guy, I've interviewed many people over the years about the Federal Reserve, about the money printing, and whether or not President Trump is essentially taking over the Fed. I've only talked to one person who believes that could be the case and is actually true and could end well for people, and that's Wayne Jett. But just about everybody else I've spoken to, the Mike Maloney's of the world, the Mike Kriegers of the world, for instance, they think it's just nonsense. It can't end well. When you look at that debt clock, $26 trillion. It wasn't long ago at all, Mike, that it passed $20 trillion. So not sure exactly where this ends, but right now it seems like more for the banks and less for the people. Once again, the same thing we saw in 2008. But let's move over to this topic I wanted to ask you about. Let's talk Q post 4554. What percent of total of BLM, Black Lives Matter donations between June 1st and July 1st went to the Biden campaign for president? What percent of the total of Biden's campaign for president donations, money raised, came from BLM donations in the past month? Worth tracking. If you look to the left, post 4555, Biden for president, $120 million worth of expenditures. Mike, I remember just a few months back where the Biden candidacy was in question because they weren't getting donations. They were running out of money. Where in the heck did he get $120 million to spend?
Yeah, I wonder if it's anything to do with this George Floyd situation. And, Sean, if you go down to that, is it the second app? I think it's the second Secure Act Blue. Let me see if the Open Secrets link right there. If you go down to that, it gives you a tally of all of those together, and it's like $1 billion. So, literally, and I tweeted this out last week when Q had mentioned it the first time, a donation to Black Lives Matter literally funds old white men to run for president. Literally. Figure that out. See that? Contributions to federal candidates. $1,057,598,402. They've contributed $1 billion to federal candidates. Remind me how many of those are African American? I mean, early on there was, Cory Booker and Kamala Harris, kinda, but not so much since then, right? I mean, over $1 billion and $120 million to Biden, and what was it, 120 plus million as well to Bernie. I mean, it is disgusting. But, they caught on to it after we caught on to it and started spreading it around. From what I understand, they've tried to remaneuver their websites, but it's out there and people know about it.
Well, look at media. How does that make any sense? Miscellaneous media, $11,000. Broadcast ads, $8,400. Unspecified media buys, $1,800. Web ads, $3,300. How?
It's nothing.
Well, that's where all the money should be going, right? They want to get their message out, but none of the money is going to media?
Yeah, and then you got $1 million for unclassifiable. That means Johnny's pocket over here.
Oh, my goodness. Well, and meanwhile, we've got new testimony coming out of the Ukraine that suggests Biden lined his pockets with $51 million in whatever pay-for-play bribery scheme he had going there, and the mainstream media ignores it entirely and props this guy up as though he's going to be the next president. You know what I think? I don't think he's mentally capable to even get through this election. He's certainly not mentally capable enough to stand toe-to-toe with Donald Trump in 3 debates. I think that they're going to broker a convention and they're going to hand the nomination to Hillary Clinton. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's something that some people have been floating around, and I don't doubt it. I don't think Joe has it in him. I honestly don't. I think it would actually make President Trump look like a bully if he had to debate Joe Biden, because let's be honest, at certain points, Joe has looked downright scary. Not knowing, just random weird things that come out of his mouth, like kids play with the hair on my legs in the pool. They float it down to watch the hair come back up, and then moves right into, I like kids sitting on my lap. And then I learned a lot about roaches, like literally went from those chains of thoughts into the other ones. And I was just thinking, like, this guy has to have lost it. Like, there's no way he could be competent in a debate against President Trump. He would absolutely get demolished at this point.
That's my feeling too. I guess I would really love to see a debate between those two, a live debate. I would love to see it. The gaffes that would come from Biden would, I think, really wake up a lot of people. Let me do a screen share here again, and we'll round out the conversation with a tip. This isn't advice, guys. It's not financial advice. You do your own due diligence. But what I've been doing for quite some time is purchasing physical silver and taking delivery of it. The paper to silver ratio right now in the world, Mike, is 173 paper ounces of silver for every 1 ounce of physical. I think it's actually much higher than that because the COMEX is constantly dealing in paper silver to the tune of, in some cases, 600 million ounces a day. In many cases, they will trade more paper silver in a week than is mined in a year on planet Earth. So as we round out the conversation about the economy and all the debt printing, one of the ways I'm trying to protect myself and my family is by buying physical silver, which at $18 an ounce is a no-brainer. Do you stack at all? Do you stack metals?
Yeah, I've actually been collecting silver myself recently, taking yours and a couple other people's advice as well. And I think there's no better thing than to actually have the metal in your hand, like you said, because some of these companies, it's like you're buying it, but you're buying a piece of paper. But you actually need to hold on to the physical metal, and everything should be backed. Back going to Kennedy, the money should have been backed by some sort of precious metal. Obviously, it should have been gold, and I think, for what I've seen out of reporting from you and a few other people as well, it seems like they're trying to keep the value of silver and gold down. And I could be wrong, but it seems like even more so the case in silver. And eventually that bubble has to burst. I mean, you would know better than me, but I would think that bubble has to burst at some point to the point where that the silver value will go back up or go up a lot higher.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think is going on, and many people like Ted Butler and Mike Maloney that I previously mentioned, and people like Mike Krieger and my buddy over there at TF Metals, Craig Hemke, they've rooted this thing out. I mean, it's documented. It's exactly what you just said is exactly what's going on. And, when John F. Kennedy still was president, before the deep state shot the man, we had silver coinage. We still had silver coinage. The quarters were silver. And now you'll see the fear-mongering about we have a coin shortage in this nation because of COVID-19. The paper money is now in question because it can spread the virus. Do you see what they're doing here, my friend? They want to remove even the paper money so that we all have to deal with digital money that they'll be able to track and trace. And one final word about that Federal Reserve. I pray to God that President Trump is able to usurp the Fed and somehow turn the Fed and its debt against itself. Again, I've talked to many people who don't see how that's possible or how it's going to end well for we the people. But that Federal Reserve system, that Rothschild Zionist banking system, has done what you see on this screen to we the people. 36 million people in this country living in poverty, 28 million people without insurance. It's easy to see when you look at those numbers, Mike, it's easy to see how people can be suckered in to thinking that socialism, and in the case of Antifa and Black Lives Matter, Marxism is somehow an answer. It's no answer, man. It's only going to bring us misery.
No, and I agree. And, to those people, I say that if you want socialism, you can go to those countries in which they have socialism. You want to go eat out of a trash can, if you want to even have enough money to have a pet so you can go eat it later because that's the only food around, by all means, take a flight down to Venezuela. But here in America, we were not formed on a socialist society. We are a republic, a democratic republic, and we will stay that way. These people that think they're going to change our country, they've done their best, and they've infiltrated us, for years. And I think, unfortunately, we've been infiltrated by so many different directions, so many different countries, and so many different groups that everybody wants a piece of America, and then they want to slowly turn it into their own country. And while I like diversity, and I think, having many different races in a country is great, I think the form of government that we had set up, and I think eventually was usurped, was the right way to go. And we need to get back on track, and people need to be held accountable. And that means voting. And if, people that are retired, I don't know about you, Sean, but I know my analytics on my channel show me a majority of my viewers are actually 45 and older. So I would implore anybody that has the extra time, run for city council, run for governor, run for mayor, anything you can do. If you want to see a better country and a better world for your children and grandchildren going forward, if you have the time and you have the ability, please take action, because we need more good people in places of power rather than these people that are trying to usurp our country.
Yeah, well said. People need to get off the couch and get engaged and take their country back on a local level. because that's where all the destruction's being done. Again, look at Mayor Jenny. I didn't really realize that mayors had as much power as they do here until this COVID-19 thing. I guess it's just the overreach of tyrants that becomes clear when stuff like this happens. But just one quick last word here. Look at this. You see my cursor there? Medium new home now, $323,000. In 2000, $165,000. Here's the problem. Median income in 2000, 31 grand. It's only gone up 3 or 4 grand. So the banks, again, guys, when I say more for the bankers, less for we the people, that's exactly what's happening. As you watch these numbers spiral out of control, look at the currency and credit derivatives now. It's approaching $1 trillion. By some accounts, it really is already at $1 trillion. $1 trillion. This is a Ponzi scheme, a dollar Ponzi scheme. And when it ends, it's going to end very, very badly for just about everyone except for those who are most prepared. But even for those who are prepared, boy, we don't want to see a system collapse. I mean, just look how painful it got during the economic shutdown, right? People losing their businesses, going bankrupt, not enough money to feed themselves or their family. I don't wish a collapse on anybody, but I'm telling you guys, if Biden or Hillary Clinton becomes president, it's really game over. Isn't it, Mike? Won't it just be game over? Won't it be time to become expats and get out of this country? I don't know how we fight to save it if one of these dirty Democrats gets in office.
Yeah, I really think that they were on their last leg of their plan to literally take over the country in the way that they wanted to. And I'm glad President Trump got in there, and as much as resistance as he's gotten, he has made a lot of progress. And I know people do want to see, me and you included, want to see action a lot faster. But we have to realize the fact that these people have been so ingrained for decades and decades and decades. And we have these bureaucrats that are in the government that are still holdovers, many thousands that are holdovers from Obama that are trying to block him and stop him at any turn. I would just say, try to support him, try to get involved, and try to do what you can to get the word out and try to wake up other people. And I would say, guys, kill them with kindness. Going to people and saying, you're an idiot, Biden's a moron, and start arguing with them is not going to help your argument at all. But you might want to say, oh, okay, that's nice. But hey, what about this? And just leave a link, And I think we need to reach over to the other side a little bit more. Try to go to their chats a little bit more, try to engage with them a little more, kill them with kindness, because nobody is going to respond to, if me and Sean were sitting here at each other's throats, we're not going to take in each other's viewpoints, and we're not going to have a debate or a conversation that's going to be constructive in any manner at all. So I think that's the best way to go. And I really hope the best for our country going forward. And I know he's trying to do what he can, and I really just hope we get some results sooner than later.
Yeah, I want to see some of these indictments handed down. We got to see deep state arrests before November. Hey, just want to shout out your Twitter account at Spaceshot76. Guys, it's a great follow. You should, if you're on Twitter, follow Spaceshot. And the YouTube channel, same name, right, Mike?
Yes, sir. Spaceshot76 on both. And I really appreciate you having me on, my man. And, I've always thought you've done great videos. And early on, I reached out to you by email for, a couple of questions and help. And you were more than happy to help me. And I always thought you were a real good guy, a solid person. And I do appreciate your work in this truther movement.
Well, thank you, Mike. I really do appreciate that very much. And back at you. You've got a great channel and an important voice in the movement for truth. Guys, our guest has been Mike from Space Shot. Mike, Spaceshot76. Thank you, Mike.
Appreciate it, brother.
All right, back at you. All right, guys, and thank you so much for tuning in. For real news 24/7, you guys can visit us directly at sgtreport.com. And a special shout out to our patrons who are keeping us in the fight for truth and real news 24/7. God bless, guys. Bye-bye.
Right now, 5 seconds from now, it's the future. 5 minutes from now, it's the future. So however I am now is seeding and coloring my future. And if I'm going to be upset and angry and feel defenseless and helpless, then that will be the future.